the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to ask the question, are we really making progress with respect to CSR and responsible mineral development? And in terms of understanding what it is, making the business case, understanding business industry best practices with the practices of other key players, and understanding what is needed now. As the Commission went around the world, they observed that where you had environmental degradation and social injustice, you also had weak economies and poverty. And their conclusion was that if you're going to do something about environmental degradation and social injustice, you also have to do something about strengthening the economy and eradicating poverty. So the emergence of this concept of sustainable development was a game changer. And it certainly defines in a very fundamental way how we go about doing our business today. At any given time, there are about 4,500 companies working on 18,000 projects in about 180 countries. We work within every geographic, political, social, cultural, and religious milieu that exists. We work with vulnerable people and we work with indigenous people in very remote locations. We engage people in ways few other industries, governments, developmental organizations do. Obviously, CSR refers specifically to the industry, individual exploration and mining companies, and the industry as a whole. But CSR and the corporate world is only one element of this much broader and more complex space involving a number of key players, all of whom have specific contributions to make in achieving a common objective, which I refer to as responsible mineral development. Their roles and responsibilities and activities are interrelated, and they influence each other in complex ways that we need to understand. So making a business case for CSR has been given a boost in recent years by an increasing convergence of CSR and the law. This trend is being propelled by evolving international standards, particularly in the areas of ethical practice, human rights, environmental degradation, disclosure, and anti-bribery and corruption. Well, based on a combination of my own research and that of others, I would estimate that at this point in time, about 30% of all companies are doing it right. That is, they are benchmarking their CSR practices to international standards. 10% are still doing their utmost to pretend it doesn't exist. And the largest group, around 60%, are what I describe as the homegrown club, who base their strategies mostly on simple common sense and homegrown strategies. Social, environmental, and political due diligence and risk assessment are the crucial first steps in any project prior to going into the field. Many companies still don't do this very well, if at all. And when they get into their project site, they end up eventually getting into problems. CSR is not just philanthropy, it's capacity building and value creation. So go ahead and build that school. But don't stop there. Make sure it has a staff and an operating budget, and even better, work with the municipal government and the region to build a proper education system in the region. And it's not about paternalism, it's about empowerment. So companies who go in and say, look, we know what's best for you, end up getting bitten a bit later on because of that approach. In this case, what you see is a number of local people being trained on how to test the water in their area in the vicinity of an operating mine themselves, not depending on the mine, not depending on local NGOs, but doing it themselves. That's empowerment. In many cases, there is a lack of trust between local people and their governments. There's an increasing tendency for water issues to become not just environmental issues, but also social issues. And in many countries, mining is coming up against organized crime. This lack of presence and therefore an inability of local government to deliver on its roles and responsibilities is now the most significant underlying cause of conflict for exploration and mining operations in developing countries. Many have pressured industry to use CSR practices to fill the resulting void. This simply doesn't work. CSR is not designed to replace the roles and responsibilities of government. So what is the next thing we need to do to make progress? Well, you won't be surprised when you hear me suggest that it's in the area of host country governance capacity building, particularly at the local level, including provincial and municipal governments. This does not mean that everybody else can sit back and wait for governments to catch up. This can be best accomplished through partnerships and collaboration among the key players. So lots of work still yet to be done, but we are making progress already into the next stage of responsible mineral development. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your attention.